Good morning, students. Welcome to the lecture of Real Analysis 1. We have studied some important theorems and examples in the last lecture. We will just have a look on those statements. The first example we have seen in the last lecture is whenever f is to be a non-negative continuous function, provided its integration value is equals to 0, then the function must be a 0 function. This is quite but obvious. Actually, from the graph itself, the idea was very clear to us. But we have proved this by the mathematical step or other mathematical proof we have given. And for giving the proof of this statement, we have taken a point C at which the function is strictly positive. And for this value, we have, as it is a contradictory assumption we have started with, we have proved we are getting a contradiction somewhere at the last to the given things. That is a contradiction to the given integration f is equal to 0. Second example, we have shown that this equation integration a to b f dash of x dx is equal to fb minus fa is not always valid. We have produced an example to verify the statement. Okay, why this is not valid? Because there is no statement given that the integrand is integrable, that is f dash is integrable. Therefore this statement is valid only if the integrand f dash is integrable. Therefore the examples we can search out for the function f where f dash is not integrable. Many examples we have discussed, and we have started with an important aspect of mean value theorem of integral calculus. Mean value theorem of integral calculus. Under this heading, we have given a first mean value theorem where the statement tells us that whenever f is a continuous function on the closed interval ab, there exists a number zeta in the closed interval ab such that integration a to b f of x dx is equals to f of zeta times b minus a. The proof is very simple. Knowing that the function is given to be continuous on the closed interval, it is bounded, and we know every continuous function is integrable, hence the function is integrable. Therefore, knowing the small m and capital M be the infima and suprema of the functions in the closed interval ab, we have written this. Just integrate both the sides from a to b, we get this type of inequality. We have proved this inequality in the earlier lectures. That integration value lies between small m times b minus a to capital M times b minus a. With this, one can have a conclusion that this integration value lies between small m times minus a to b, capital M times b minus a, that is some multiple of b minus a. Therefore, we have assumed the value mu in between small m to capital M, where the integration value is mu times b minus a. But as of the function is continuous, this mu is taking a function value. Therefore, we have replaced this mu by f of zeta. Hence, we are getting the proof of first mean value theorem of the integral calculus. With the help of example also we have verified. I have given you some example to solve for homework. I hope you have solved those examples. Let us come for today's lecture. We are going to discuss generalized mean value theorem and second mean value theorem in today's lecture. If anyone is having the difficulty about the last lecture, you can raise the difficulty. I will answer this. If you have any difficulty. Otherwise, I will write a statement of next year. Alright, next theorem, generalized first mean value theorem. If f and g are integrable on closed interval a to b and g keeps same sign, over closed interval ab, then prove that there exists a number mu. There exists a number mu lying between the bounds of f, such that integration a to b f dot g dx is equals to mu mu times integration a to b g dx. Mu times integration a to b g dx. Right? Therefore, what is the mean value in this case? Mu is the mean value which lies between the bounds of f. Right? What is the statement says? Integration of a product f dot g, integration of a product f dot g is equals to mu times integration of that function g, a to b g dx. Okay. Now what are the things given to us in the assumption? F and g are integrable. G keeps same sign. G keeps same sign means what? G is either non-negative or non-positive. That is, the graph of G will be either above, on or above x-axis or on or below x-axis. This is to one side of the x-axis. This is what the meaning of G keeps the same sign. Then we are giving the existence of a number mu between the bounds of F, such that this statement is going to hold. Proof of this theorem is very easy. Let us have a look to the proof of the statement. Actually, we want to prove the existence of a number mu lying between the bounds of F. Therefore, let me write what are the bounds of F. Before that, I will write, it is given that both the functions are integrable. It is given that F and G are integrable. F and G are integrable on closed interval AB. I will write the bounds. Let small m and capital M be infima and suprema, or you can write simply bounds. Bounds of F. Bounds of F. If these are the two bounds of F, what about the function values? May I say all function values lies between small m and capital M. Therefore, may I write small m less than or equals to f of x less than or equals to capital M, and this is for all x in the closed interval AB. This is for all x in the closed interval AB. Now we will use the aspect given that G keeps the same sign. Therefore, once we have to assume this is non-negative, once we have to assume this to be non-positive. Time being, for the first case, let me assume, or let us assume, not me, let us assume that g of x is non-negative for all x in the closed interval AB. G of x is non-negative. First sign we are considering. We will conclude the same thing for g of x to be non-positive. Now, if we are assuming g of x is non-negative, then if I multiply this above equation by g of x, whether there is an effect on the inequality or not.
No, it will remain same.
No, ma'am.
Will remains the same. But if I multiply by g of x, which is non-positive, then what will happen?
Inequality changes. Exact opposite.
Yes. Multiply what I will write? Multiply this by multiply equation 1 by g of x. Okay. What is the effect if I multiply by g of x? There is no effect on the inequality. Therefore, simply I can write mg of x is less than or equals to f of x g of x less than or equals to capital M into g of x. Next step, we will integrate between the limits a to b. Integrating from a to b, we have. What we will have if I integrate? May I say the small m and capital M are the constants, therefore taken outside the integration. Therefore, v remains with m times integration a to b g of x dx less than or equals to integration a to b f of x g of x dx less than or equals to capital M times integration a to b g of x dx. Correct? No doubt b is greater than or equals to a is the assumption, because if b is less than or equals to a, again this negative will get introduced. Okay, whenever it was not written b is greater than or equals to, it will be an assumption. It will be b greater than or equals to a. Now look at the statement. Integration of the product f of x g of x lies between small m times integration g to capital M times integration of g. That is, the value of this middle integration is some multiple of integration g. This is some multiple of integration g. As of in the previous theorem we have written, integration value lies between small m times b minus a to capital M times b minus a, so that the value of integration is theorem. First mean value. No? Here we have written no. Integration value lies between small m times b minus a to capital M times b minus a. Therefore, this integration is some multiple of b minus a, that is mu times we have written. Same conclusion we are going to follow here. The same conclusion we are going to follow here. This integration of a product lies between small m times integration g to capital M times integration g. Therefore, this integration of a product is equal to some multiple of integration g. Some multiple of integration g. Therefore, let us assume, let mu be the number. Let mu be the number lying between small m and capital M. Then what can I write? Integration a to b f of x g of x dx is equals to mu times integration a to b g of x dx. A to b g of x dx. Now just think of what will happen if it is g of x is non-positive. That is, if it is less equal. I will just mark it with a pink color symbol, pink color pen. G of x is non-positive. If I multiply this above statement by g of x non-positive, what is the effect on the statement? This inequality get reversed. Therefore, here it is greater equal, here it is greater equal. Again, if I integrate, it will be greater equal and greater equal. Correct now? But still, may I say, the value of integration lies between capital M times integration to small m times integration is to be gdx. Correct? Therefore, still we are getting one number mu between the bounds. Now, small m to capital M, where the value is going to be equal to integration f of x g of x is equals to mu times integration g. Okay. Therefore, here may I write similarly for g of x less than or equals to 0, the result holds. The result holds. Is it fine to everyone? Is there any doubt with the theorem? Very simple proof we have actually. We are not going to repeat the proof for g of x to be non-positive. We are going to write it similarly. I have shown you actually here by pink color pen. Okay. Let me go for the next. There is one corollary depending on the theorem. What will happen if I add the condition of continuity in the statement? What will happen if I add the condition of continuity for the function f? If f is to be continuous, look at the statement, last statement. Mu is the number lying between the bounds small m to capital M. If I know the function f is continuous, then this the function will take all values between small m to capital M. Therefore, this mu will be a function value. Therefore, one can replace this mu by f of zeta or f of a number. It's a function value. This is what our corollary is. Therefore, let me write a corollary of the statement. Corollary says that if f and g are integrable on closed interval AB and g keeps same sign over closed interval AB and f is continuous. This was not there in the original statement. We are adding this as a corollary. If f is continuous on closed interval AB Then prove that. There exists a number zeta belongs to closed interval AB such that, what such that? Integration a to b f g dx is equals to f of zeta times integration a to b g dx. Integration a to b g dx. Okay. What we are going to write? We are going to make use of the statement of the previous theorem. Therefore, here I will write by generalized mean value theorem. By generalized mean value theorem, integration a to b f dot g dx is equals to mu times integration a to b g dx, where mu is the number lying between small m and capital M. Now what we are going to add simply, as f is continuous, as I have already explained, it is going to take all the function values between small m to capital M. Therefore, mu is a function value. Therefore, I am going to write this mu is equals to f of zeta for some zeta in the closed interval AB. So let me put the value mu is equals to f of zeta in the above equation. It gives us the proof of the corollary. This is f of zeta into integration a to b g dx, and hence it is the proof of the corollary. Therefore, this zeta as a number following a special property, therefore this is called as the mean value. Here mu is also called as the mean. Okay. I hope there is no difficulty among the theorem. From student side, if you have a difficulty?
No, ma'am.
Good. Now let us go to a next called as a second mean value theorem. Second mean value theorem. Actually, the proof of second mean value theorem is not given directly. The proof of second mean value theorem was given by a great German mathematician Karl Weierstrass, and the proof of the statement depends on Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. Therefore, what we have to do is we have to see what are the proofs of Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. Then we have to go for the proof of second mean value theorem. Therefore, here I will just write the theorem was proved by great German mathematician. I think all of you have heard the name, na? Weierstrass. Heard his name or not? Being a mathematics student, I hope all of you are familiar with Weierstrass, Karl Weierstrass. Karl Weierstrass, and proof depends on Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. Okay, this is actually the generalization of the Bonnet's theorem. Before going to the statement, what Abel's lemma, Bonnet's theorem tells us, or what is the statement of second mean value theorem, what we will do, we will try to understand some life history about these mathematicians. Let me stop this screen. I will share my entire screen with you. First mathematician. Is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Check now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now this is what about a famous mathematician Karl Weierstrass. This was a picture we have. Karl Weierstrass was a German mathematician born on 31st August 1815 to 19 February 1897. He died at the age of 91 nationality is German. Okay, and he got many awards about his research. Actually, he was famous or known as a father of modern analysis. Whatever the definition of continuity of function we were studying in every lecture of analysis was given by mathematician Carl Weierstrass. See, Weierstrass formalized the definition of continuity of a function. Also, he has proved intermediate value theorem, Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem. Okay, many useful theorems are defined by the mathematician Carl Weierstrass. The proof, one of the proof in our syllabus is second mean value theorem of integral calculus, where the proof actually depends on Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. Let me show you who is Abel. Is this screen visible to everyone? The full name of this mathematician is Niels Henrik Abel. Full name of this mathematician is Niels Henrik Abel. He was very famous for the fields of algebra. Okay, actually he was very famous for knowing his contributions in algebra field theory. He was algebra field theory, and he became famous for the single reason he has completed proving impossibility of solving a general quintic equation. Impossibility of solving a general quintic equation in radicals, because we know the fact a quadratic equation can be solved by radicals. A cubic equation can also be solved by radicals. Biquadratic can also be solved, converting this to be a quadratic. But quintic equation means an equation of a degree 5. This cannot be solved by radicals, and this impossibility was proved by this mathematician Niels Henrik Abel. Okay, therefore this was actually his outstanding open problem result he has solved, and actually the life tenure for his is very short. He died at the age of 26 only. He died at the age of 26 only. He is famous for the abelian groups, abelian functions. Abelian groups are known to us, I think, correct, na? He has given the proof, he has given the concept of abelian group. Actually, there was one famous prize was given in his honor called as Abel's Prize. Called as Abel's Prize. Abel's Prize in mathematics has actually given, which is very similar to a Nobel's Prize. Which is similar to a Nobel Prize. Abel Prize was established on 1st January 2002. It was started from, and the prize amount for this is 7.5 million Norwegian dollars. Okay, which is actually 7,40,000 American dollars approximately. This was the first prize, which is very similar to a Nobel Prize. I think all of you are familiar. Nobel Prize was not given to the mathematicians. Do anyone know the reason? Abel's Prize was not given to the, not given in the field of mathematics. Whether anyone knows the reason behind this? If you search the reason on the Google, they were telling Nobel, who was actually the inventor and industrialist, did not create a prize in mathematics because he was not interested in mathematics. He was not interested in mathematics. That's why he has not sponsored the prize for the mathematics. Therefore, equivalent to this Nobel Prize, Abel Prize was given only for the scientific work in the field of mathematics. Okay, it was given for the outstanding scientific work, rather I will call outstanding scientific work in mathematics. One more famous prize of honor is there in mathematics, Field Award. Let me show you, Fields Medal. This was a medal. Okay, and this medal or this Fields Medal was given for the outstanding contributions in mathematics to the mathematicians under 40 years only, and this was given maybe to 2, 3 or 4 mathematicians. 4 mathematicians. The prize amount for the Field Medal is around 15,000 American dollars. Around 15,000 American dollars. It was sponsored by John Charles Fields, Canadian mathematician he was. Canadian mathematician, and this prize was given after every 4 years. This was given after every 4 years. This was just a general information about the mathematicians, fields in the mathematician. Let me come to again Niels Henrik Abel. He was a great mathematician, Norwegian mathematician, born on 5 August 1802, and till the life tenure is 6 April 1829. Therefore, we can observe he died at the age of 26. I don't know why the brilliant mathematicians were died at the very, or they have lived a very short life. One more example we can give is great Indian mathematician Ramanujan. Also, mathematician Galois. I think in algebra you are going to study the Galois group theory. Na? Let me show you Galois. Évariste Galois was the full name. Évariste Galois, and he was a French mathematician. He died at the age of 20 only. He died at the age of 20 only. He was famous for determining necessary and sufficient conditions for the polynomial to be solvable by radicals. Okay. If you just go with the life history of Galois, it was somewhat terrible. Whatever the research in mathematics he has done everything in the prison. He was there in the prison. Okay. It's very interesting always to know about the mathematician whose theorems are there in our syllabus. Whose theorems are there in it. If you want to study, or if you want to know in detail about these mathematicians, there was a famous book called Ganiti written by Achyut Godbole. This book was written in Marathi language so that it will be easy for you to understand also. Okay. So, Abel we have discussed, Carl Weierstrass also. The third mathematician we want to discuss, because the proof of second mean value theorem which was given by Carl Weierstrass depends on Abel's lemma and Bonnet's theorem. The full name of this mathematician is Perry Ocean Bonnet. This was an image. He died at the age of 72. More or less, the coincidence is he is also born on 22nd December, because we know 22nd December is celebrated as National Mathematics Day all over the India, right? Which was actually a birth anniversary of great Indian mathematician Srinivas Ramanujan. Coincidentally, Bonnet is also having the birth anniversary on 22nd December. Right, and Bonnet was actually famous for the differential geometry of surfaces, famous for one of his theorem called as Gauss-Bonnet theorem. Called as Gauss-Bonnet theorem. Let me stop this screen again. But I suggest to everyone that you should know about the life history of the mathematicians, because they were giving us one kind of inspiration for the study. Let me share my screen. Check, is the screen clearly visible again?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we will go for the proof of second mean value theorem, but before that we have to study what is Abel's lemma and what is Bonnet's theorem. Therefore, first let us discuss what is Abel's lemma. The statement of the Abel's lemma is, if sequence Bn is a positive monotone decreasing sequence, and small k, comma capital K, small k, comma capital K are respectively the least and greatest values, least and greatest values of the sum summation r equals to m to p u r for p equals to m plus 1 m plus 2 n. Then prove that bm small k is less than or equals to summation r equals to m to n br ur is less than or equals to bm into capital K. bm into capital K. Look at the statement. First we have to understand the meaning of the statement and then we will go for the proof of this. Okay. Bn is given to be positive monotone decreasing sequence. Positive monotone decreasing means every number in the sequence is positive and the sequence is monotonically decreasing. Second thing, small k and capital K are the least and greatest values of this sum. What is the sum? It is the sum summation r equals to m to p ur for the values of p equal to m plus 1 up to n. That is, if I put the value of p is equals to m, how many terms will be there in the summation? R equal to m, means there is only one term. If I put p is equals to m plus 1, then m to m plus 1, there will be two terms um plus 1. Okay, therefore continue. If I put the value for m equals p equal to n, then the sum will be r equals to m to n. And for this last sum, r equals to m to n, whatever is this ur, if we multiply it by the sequence, series was multiplied by the terms of a sequence. Okay, are you getting me? How this combination was taken? This series was multiplied by this positive monotone decreasing sequence, and whatever this new series is going to construct, new sum, was actually summation br ur, and this least and greatest values are given to us, right? So let me try to tell you what is the theme of the proof. What is given to us? Small k and capital K are least and greatest values of this sum. That is summation r equals to m to p ur. P equal to n I will take particularly because we want to prove the result for p equals to n. So let me write here. This value lies between small k to capital K. I hope you are getting the difference between my small k and capital K. For small k, I am writing some curly. Okay. This value lies between summation r from m to n ur. This value lies between small m times k to capital M times k. Sequence bn is given to be a positive monotone decreasing sequence. This symbol we are using for decreasing sequence. Positive monotone decreasing sequence. If it is positive monotone decreasing sequence, look at the terms r equals to m to n. If I concentrate on br for r equals to m plus 1 up to n, what about this bm value? Can anyone tell me whether this is the least value or the greatest value in the sequence? This is the sequence BRC or the BR term for r equals to m plus 1 up to n. Therefore, may I say bm will be the greatest value? Why it is? Because
Yes,
because the sequence is positive
Decreasing.
monotone decreasing. Good. Therefore, bm will be the greatest value among all the terms. Therefore, we want to prove that whenever this statement r equals to m to n is given, summation ur r equals to m to m lies between small m times k to capital M times k, then if this sequence, if the series terms are multiplied by the corresponding terms of the sequence bn, then the new sum, the new series is having least and greatest values, which has actually the least one as bmk and greatest is bm capital K, where bm is the greatest among all those numbers bm plus 1 up to n. This is what we want to. If you see, the idea is series multiplied by the corresponding sequence terms, and we want to tell the least and greatest values after multiplying by the sequence terms, if we know the least and greatest values of the series. Correct? Quite interesting statement it was actually. Proof is very easy. Let us move towards the proof. Okay. Now actually initially we will assume this sum to be by number. Say SP, because this is the sum. Upper value is P. Let me denote this sum by SP. Okay. Then we will try to generalize the next part. Right? Therefore, let me start with the first assumption. Let SP is equal to summation R equals to M to P VR. UR equal to UR. Then, right. Now what we will do, we will try to find out the summation values for different values of P. How many values of P are going to take? P takes M plus 1 up to N it is going to take. Right? No? P is going to take these many values, M plus 1. So we will try to find out the value of sum for the different values of P. Then we will try to write every UR value in terms of summation. Every UR value in terms of summation. We will try to multiply by VR and we will try to find out the corresponding result. Okay. Understood this first step? We are going to call this as sum SP. Why P I am calling? Because it depends on the upper limit P. Okay. Now let us start. What is given to us for P equals to M? What will be the sum? For P equals to M, is it yes, M? How many terms the series will take?
Only one term.
Only one term. Because it will start with R equals to M and it will end on M. So for M to M, we have only one term, that is UM. Is it okay? Next, for P equals to M plus 1. What is the summation value? Is it SM plus 1? Is it SM plus 1? And may I write this as UM plus 1 added with UM. Two terms will be there. No. R will start with M, end on M plus 1. Therefore, there are two terms in all in the series. Right? Let me write for one more. P equals to M plus 2. This is SM plus 2, which is equals to UM plus 2 added with UM plus 1 added with UM. Okay, and let me continue this discussion for up to P equals to N. What is the value? Sn. Sn will be UN to UM plus 1 plus UM. Or you can write in the reverse. You can start with UM plus 1 up to UN. Now from these values of our summation, what we are trying to do, we will try to find out the values of UIs, because summation UR is given to be lying between K to K. Therefore, we will try to extract UR values for R equals to M plus 1 up to UN in terms of this summation, right? Therefore, from the first equation, what is my UM? This is SM, no doubt. What is UM plus 1? This is SM plus 1 minus UM, but UM is SM. Therefore, UM plus 1 may I write SM plus 1 minus SM. Now, we are trying to write U values in terms of S values. So for the first U value, UM is SM, no doubt, correct now? UM is SM, UM plus 1 is SM plus 1 minus UM. UM plus 1 is SM plus 1 minus UN. Okay, but UM is SM already we have written. Therefore, shall I write SM plus 1 minus SM? SM plus 1 minus SM. Next value, what about UM plus 2? This value is SM plus 1. This value is SM plus 1. Therefore, what is UM plus 2? SM plus 2 minus SM plus 1. And lastly, what about the value UN? This previous will be Sn minus 1 minus Sn minus Sn minus 1. Is this steps okay to everyone? If you have a doubt, you can ask me. And continue. What about un? Un is Sn minus Sn minus 1. Why Sn minus Sn minus 1? Because here the term will be un minus 1. Right? And what about this sum? This sum will be Sn minus 1. Um to un minus 1 will be Sn minus 1. Therefore, un will be Sn minus Sn minus 1. So, what we have done? We have collected all u values in terms of s values. All u values in terms of s values. We want to prove the relation for this summation, BRUR. Therefore, first we will write it. We will consider this value, and whatever the value we are getting after the construction, we will try to construct it. Consider. What should I consider? Summation r equals to m to n BRUR. BRUR. What is summation r equals to m to n BRUR? For r equals to m, this is bm um. For r equals to m plus 1, this is bm plus 1 um plus 1. Added with, I will write the last one, this is bn un. Now the values of u's are known to us in terms of s. We will put the values. bm um, I will put sm. Next, um plus 1, I will put Sm plus 1 minus Sm. Continue. Bn. Un I will put Sn minus Sn minus 1. Okay. Now the next step we will do, we will try to collect the coefficients of Sm, Sm plus 1 and so on till Sn. What is the coefficient of Sm? Here is the term Sm we have. Therefore, what will be a coefficient? Is it Bm minus Bm plus 1? Correct? What is the coefficient of Sm plus 1? What is the coefficient of Sm plus 1? This first coefficient is Bm plus 1. Minus what will be
Bm plus 2.
Good. This is minus Bm plus 2. And let me continue this till, say, Sn minus 1. What are the coefficients of Sn minus 1? Coefficient of Sn minus. For Sn, this is Bm minus Bm plus 1. For Sn plus 1, it is Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. Therefore, for Sn minus 1, we are right? Bn minus 1 minus Bn. Or if you write, you can add one or more two terms here in the statement itself. Okay? And what for last? For last, we have only one, Bn, Sn. Is this step clear?
Yes, ma'am.
I will call this to be statement. I think I have not given a number anyway. I will call 1. I will call 1. Okay. Now, what is the another thing known to us? Small k and capital K are least and greatest values of the summation ur. Okay. And let me write it. It is given that small k and capital K are least and greatest values of summation r equals to m to p ur. But what this sum we have denoted by? We have denoted by sp. And for this is for p equals to m plus 1 up to n. Okay. Therefore, may I write sp lies between? Sp lies between which two values? Small k
And capital.
Capital K, no doubt. And for p equals to m plus 1 up to n. For p equals to m plus 1 up to n. Let me call this to be statement number 2. Okay. Now, We want to construct this right hand side of equation number 1. We want to construct a right hand side of equation number 1, that is summation BRU1, and we have to prove that it lies between the two values Bm small k to Bm capital K. Now look at this right hand side very carefully. The coefficient of Sm is Bm minus Bm plus 1. Coefficient of Sm plus 1 is Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. Knowing the sequence Bn is positive monotonic decreasing sequence, what is the nature of these terms, bracketed terms? Whether those are non-negative or non-positive. Bm minus Bm plus 1. Bm is the first term of the sequence. Second term of the
Non-negative.
Yes, it is non-negative. This is non-negative. Therefore, while constructing the right-hand side, we have this term with us. We have this inequality with us, Sp. If I put the value of P is equals to M, what is my statement? Sm lies between small k to capital K. Now, we will multiply this Sm by which term? Bm minus Bm plus 1. This term is non-negative. Therefore, there is no effect on this inequality. First term will be constructed like this. Correct now? First term will be constructed. Then what we will do? We will put the value of P equal to Sm plus 1. What is this inequality then? Sm plus 1 lies between small k to capital K. What is the coefficient of Sm plus 1 in the right hand side? Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. Again, this is non-negative. Then we will multiply. Likewise, we will go on multiplying this inequality for the specific values of P equals to m plus 1, m plus 2 up to n by these coefficients. Okay. And finally, what we will do? We will add all these inequalities. Okay. Check, is the steps clear to everyone? What I am going to do? First, we will put P equals to m here, so that the inequality is small k less equal by Sm less than or equals to capital K. We want to construct this. The coefficient of Sm in this equation number 1 is Bm minus Bm plus 1. Therefore, we will multiply the inequality by this term. We will keep it aside. Then we will put P equal to m plus 1. Therefore, the term here will be Sm plus 1. What is the multiplier? Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. We will get the second inequality. We will continue like this up to Sn minus 1. We will put the value of P equal to Sn minus 1. The inequality in hand will be small k less than or equal to Sn minus 1 less than or equals to k. We will multiply this coefficient. Lastly, we will put P equal to n. We will multiply by Bn. And finally, whatever those inequalities we will obtain, we will add all those inequalities, so that this right hand side of equation number 1 will be constructed, which is nothing but summation BRU1. Because we want to make the conclusion about the least and greatest values of summation BRU1. Is the steps okay to everyone? Let me do the steps.
Yes, ma'am.
Before that, I will write the bracketed terms are non-negative. Also, as the sequence Bn is positive monotone decreasing sequence, thus each bracket, correct na? Each bracket on RHS of 1, each bracket on the RHS of this equation number 1 is, each bracket is non-negative. Why we are making sure it is non-negative? So that multiplying by the bracket, this inequality should not change. Okay. Now what we are going to do? Multiply inequality 2 by Bm minus Bm What is the first term? Bm minus bm plus 1. Yeah? Next is bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2 dot dot up to bn for the values of p equal to, for the values of p equals to m plus 1 to n and adding. Okay, and adding I will do later. First let me multiply this. Okay. Is it clear? Now we will write this statement 2 for p equal to m. We will select this as my multiplier, right? For p equals to m. What is the inequality? Small k less than or equals to sm less than or equals to capital K, which gives us in turn bm minus bm plus 1 into small k less than or equals to bm minus bm plus 1 into sm less than or equals to bm minus bm plus 1 into capital K. Next, for p equals to m plus 1. What is the statement? Inequality small k less than or equal to sm plus 1 less than or equals to capital K. What is the multiplier? bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2. bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2 small k less than or equals to bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2 sm less than or equals to into capital K. Okay, let me proceed directly continuing this way for p equals to n. What is the inequality for p equals to n? Small k less than or equal to Sn less than or equals to capital K. What is the multiplier to Sn? I'll skip this Sn minus 1. Multiplier to Sn is Bn. Because this is Bnk less than or equals to Bn Sn less than or equals to Bn capital K. Bn capital K. Now what the job we are going to do? We are going to add all these inequalities. We are going to add all these inequalities. Okay. Here I will write adding all the inequalities. Yes, what is the inequality? If I add all the inequalities, may I say, the middle term is nothing but summation BRUR, because we have constructed like this. Na? The middle term of the inequality is summation BRUR for r equals to m to n. Only we have to write the left and right part of the inequalities. Adding all the inequalities. What is the left part of the inequality? Small k into bm minus bm plus 1, bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2 till bnk. Okay, the small k I am taking common, or you can keep it as this. This is bm minus bm plus 1 plus small k into bm plus 1 minus bm plus 2. Continue this up to. Shall I write for one more? K into bn minus 1 minus bn plus k into bn. Here one can add for one more for p equals to n minus 1. What is for p equals to n minus 1? Bn minus 1 minus bn small k less than or equals to bn minus 1 minus bn into sm less than or equals to bn minus 1 minus bn into capital. Okay. This is the left hand side of the inequality, which is less than or equals to. The middle term I am writing directly, summation BRUR r equals to m to n, again which is less than or equals to. What is the right hand side? right hand side of the inequality is capital K into the same terms, no? Bm minus Bm plus 1 added with capital K into Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. Continue capital K into Bn minus 1 minus Bn, and lastly capital K into Bn. Okay, now look at this left hand side. K into plus Bm plus 1 will get cancelled with this. This Bm plus 2 will cancel with its next. Continue. This Bn minus 1 will cancel with its previous term. For how many terms we were remaining with?
Bm minus Bn.
Bm minus Bn. Good. Is it Bm minus Bn? No. This Bn is also get cancelled now. This Bn is cancelled with this Bn. Therefore, we remain with only one term.
Only Bm.
It's only Bm. So is it Bm into small k? Same is true for the right hand side. This Bm plus 1 will get cancelled with this. This will cancel with it next. This will cancel with its previous. This Bn will get cancelled. We remain with only Bn. R equals to m to n. Br ur less than or equals to Bm into capital K. Is it true? Okay, and hence this is the proof. We have proved summation BRUR lies between Bm small k to Bm capital K. This is what we want to prove in our example. Summation BRUR lies between Bm capital K to Bm small k. But see, whenever we were writing a series, generally we start with R equals to 1, na? That is, this m is 1. Therefore, we will just write what is the particular value if n is equal to 1. Here I will write in a particular case for R equals m equal to 1. In a particular case for m equal to 1. What will be the statement? Is it B1k less than or equals to summation R equals to 1 to n BR UR less than or equals to B1k? Is it correct? Whether the proof understood to all the students? Or if you have the doubt, you can ask. I'll just tell you the theme again. It was given that this series summation R equals to m to n UR lies between small k to capital K. Bn is given to be positive monotone decreasing sequence. Therefore, for the values of R equals to m to n, Bm will be greatest among all the values. Therefore, if we multiply this series by a sequence Br, therefore the series constructed will be BRUR. New series constructed will be BRUR, and this series is having least element as small bm into small k, greatest element as Bm into capital K. To prove this, we have denoted the summation R equals to m to p by UR. P is the symbol we have used because the sum value depends on the upper limit p. Then for the different values of p, we have written all the sums. Later, we have written the values of ui's in terms of summations. Ui's in terms of these summation. Then we have considered directly the middle term of the inequality which we want to prove. Actually, summation R equals to m to n summation BRUR. Then we have written this. We have constructed this equation. We have denoted by 1. Okay. Then it was given small k and capital K are the values of least and greatest values of SP. This is the statement. Now using this inequality, we are trying to construct this right hand side of statement number 1. Therefore, the multipliers to this inequality for the different values of p we will select as, for p equal to m, the multiplier we will select is Bm minus Bm plus 1. For p equal to m plus 1, we will select the multiplier Bm plus 1 minus Bm plus 2. And just we will write all the inequalities. And as all these values are non-negative, multiplying by these terms to the inequalities does not take any effect. This is what the inequalities we have written for the different values of p with the suitable coefficients. And finally, if we add, we remain with this kind of inequality where the middle term is no doubt BRUR, and To the left hand side, all the terms cancels one another and we remain with BMK. Same is true for the right hand side, we remain with BM into capital K. And hence it is the proof for the statement. A particular case of m equals to 1 we have written because generally we are writing the series starting from 1 to n. 1 to n. Therefore, for the value m equals to 1, the statement says that summation BRUR lies between Bm into small k. Sorry, here it is small k. Bm into small k to Bm into B1 into capital K. Because for the sequence B1, if it starts with 1, Bm will be the greatest value among the sequence. Therefore, the least and greatest values are obtained for the new series just by multiplying by B1 to the least and greatest values of the original series. This is what Abel's lemma tells us. Now, using this Abel's lemma, we will prove one more theorem called as Bonnet's theorem. The proof of Bonnet's theorem and second mean value theorem we will discuss in the next lecture. We will stop for today. If you have any kind of difficulties, you can ask me. If not, we will stop for today. Thank you for being with me for this lecture.